Good morning and welcome to Ryan Bridge Today with me, Garth Bray. It's Monday, the 23rd of February. On the show today, well, the government is giving police new powers to crack down on beggars, rough sleepers and people displaying disorderly, disruptive, threatening or intimidating behaviour. Quite the catch-all. So will it help? Justice Minister Paul Goldsmith is next. It's Trump's tariff tantrum after the Supreme Court declared his tariffs were illegal. The president's gone and slapped a 15% tariff on everyone. So where does that leave Kiwi exporters? We'll have Trade Minister Todd McClay after 8. And as the US continues to turn up the heat on Iran, will it be war or peace? International affairs expert Professor Anthony Glees on that. Plus, the Winter Olympics are wrapping up. Are New Zealand's 3 medals enough to call it a success? First of all, here's the news with Neva.
Herald Now News, powered by Newstalk ZB.
Concern from community housing providers that newly proposed move-on orders could drive people away from help. The government's moving to allow police to take action on people who are begging and sleeping rough. They'll have the power to order people to leave a public space for up to 24 hours, with fines of up to $2,000 or 3 months in jail. Community Housing Aotearoa Chief Executive Paul Gilbert says that the rough sleepers they're seeing on the streets are just the tip of the iceberg. He says there's people couch surfing, sleeping in cars or hidden away elsewhere. The world is waiting for Donald Trump's next move as he appears to ignore the Supreme Court's latest ruling. The US president announced a new 10% global tariff on Saturday, then yesterday increased it to 15%. It followed his outrage the Supreme Court ruled that his tariff hikes last year were illegal. Otago University International Relations Professor Robert Patman says Trump's arbitrary use of tariffs is inconsistent with a rules-based world order. Meanwhile, a man has been shot and killed after entering the perimeter of President Donald Trump's resort in Palm Beach in Florida. The white male in his early 20s entered the secure perimeter at Mar-a-Lago around 1:30 a.m. before he was shot by agents and a Palm Beach deputy. The North Carolina man was reported missing a few days ago by his family. The President and First Lady were not on the premises. The woman at the centre of the McKimming scandal appears to have demanded money from the former Deputy Police Commissioner. In December, McKimming received 9 months home detention for possessing questionable material. A tranche of emails obtained by the Herald suggests the woman, known as Miss Z, asked for money between February 9th and 18th, 2024. Herald reporter Michael Morris says that the emails did not feature in the scathing IPCA report released in December. He says one states the sender wanted $600 for every time they were deceived into performing any sexual act. Ms. Z has not confirmed or denied whether she wrote the emails. Taxpayers have spent $58 million on redundancy payouts after Health NZ cut thousands of jobs in cost-saving drive. Official Information Act figures show that the money went to voluntary redundancies and early exits for non-clinical staff between November 2023 and December last year. The Public Service Association estimates nearly 2,800 workers left during that time. National Secretary Fleur Fitzsimons says it's a shameful outcome of reckless government cost-cutting during a health funding crisis and warns patients will ultimately pay the price.
Herald Now Sport, brought to you by Gold Sport.
Competition at the Milan Cortina Olympics is complete, with New Zealand 22nd on the medal table. 17-year-old Misha Thomas wrapped the campaign with 8th in the women's free ski halfpipe. The Breakers have defeated the 36ers 111-107 to claim ANBL Basketball's inaugural Ignite Cup final on the Gold Coast, despite missing the overall season playoffs. Central Districts have claimed the Ford Trophy cricket title, courtesy of a 6-wicket win over Canterbury in the final at Wellington.
We've just seen a big week for playing by the rules, haven't we? Between the justice system in the UK finally catching up with Andrew for questioning late last week, and then over our weekend, the US Supreme Court laying down the law to Donald Trump over his emergency tariffs. Started to look like the rules matter more than the powerful people who try to ignore them. Hooray for the rule of law. It matters a lot for small nations like ours in the world that the rules count, because we just don't have the military might or money to fight our own battles on the world stage. But if you look a little closer, is it really a victory for the rules-based order, or has money made it matter? Victims, some of them named and outed in the Epstein files dump, well, they've been calling for criminal investigations into the perpetrators, but it was a complaint of sharing confidential information that might hurt British business interests that appears to have earned Andrew Mountbatten Windsor a trip to the police station on his birthday, and that incredible photo of him heading home with the full weight of his actions starting to sink in. Likewise, the US Supreme Court has previously returned decisions that support President Trump on some pretty controversial policies like immigration raids using roving patrols and cancelling citizenship rights, large-scale layoffs in government agencies. But it's drawn a line now on the ability of a president to tax a business wanting to import goods. We might say this is the right result, but looking at the reasons, sure, rules matter, but it's money that makes them matter.
Herald Now weather.
Morena, for most of us, it's a sunny looking start to the week thanks to high pressure built right across the country. There is this next front, this band of wet weather arriving in the far southwest later on, but for most of us it's a dry and sunny Monday. And even here in the south it starts off pretty decent, plenty of clear sky and sunshine. The clouds starting to thicken up as we head through the afternoon, that wet weather arriving in as we head towards the end of the day. Up this western coast towards Tasman, Marlborough and down through Canterbury. Again, plenty of dry weather, just the cloud thickening up as we head in towards the afternoon. And that dry weather extends on towards the North Island as well. Plenty of sunny weather right the way from Wellington around towards Taranaki. Just a touch more cloud as we head through the afternoon. And that cloud will also begin to build and bubble away across the tops of, say, the Raukumara range up here in the Tairāwhiti region, bringing an odd shower, but very much most of us will keep hold of that dry weather. Just a little bit more cloud through the afternoon. And it extends right the way towards Northland and Auckland, with highs in Auckland of 23 degrees Celsius.
6 minutes after 7, just some breaking news from overnight. A man has been shot dead trying to enter US President Donald Trump's Mar-a-Lago estate. He's been named as 21-year-old Austin Tucker Martin from North Carolina. The Secret Service says Martin was armed with a shotgun and was carrying a can of petrol.
Earlier today, 2 special agents from the Secret Service and a deputy from the Palm Beach Sheriff's Office were involved in an officer-involved shooting while responding to an armed individual at one of the gates at Mar-a-Lago. Preliminary information indicates that the individual was armed with a shotgun and a possession of a gasoline canister.
Right, back here, the government is giving police the power to issue move-on orders to the homeless anywhere in the country. That's despite data showing public order offending is significantly lower than 10 years ago and previous reluctance from the police minister to have police lead the response to homelessness. Justice Minister Paul Goldsmith joins me now in the studio. Good morning, Minister.
Good morning, how are you?
Lovely to have you here. You got here nice and bright and early. Thanks for joining us. Look, I guess the early criticism from this has come from people who say, are we targeting the vulnerable here?
Yeah,
what do you say?
And look, I mean, we've spent the last 2 years working to fix the basics by restoring law and order in this country, and we're making good progress. We've toughened up sentencing laws, we've given the police extra power to deal with gangs, and a host of other things, dealt with stalking behaviours. But one of the areas that consistently comes up is particularly people who work and live in the CBDs and our main streets. The antisocial behaviour really sort of picked up during the COVID period and hasn't yet been resolved. And so this is about giving the police an extra tool to deal with that group. And look, if the criticism is this is our only response to people in need, well, yeah, that would be a fair criticism. But of course it's not. I mean, the government has a massive investment in helping with housing situations and with all the addictions and issues that this group deals with as well. But this is about a tool dealing with those who don't comply.
Yeah, I think I picked up that your Minister, Simeon Brown, was saying 146 people have been placed into housing since the end of January, up from 33 when you announced it last. That's nowhere near the sort of level of need that's there, though, is it? You're not. You still don't have places for the people that need to find homes?
There are extra places that can still yet be filled. There's a relatively small group of genuinely homeless people in Auckland and in our cities, and we're working to deal with those issues. But there's also a much wider group of antisocial behaviour that everybody sees. I defy anybody who have been into central Auckland and central Wellington, our downtown areas recently, to see that there is this kind of antisocial behaviour. And what we're trying to do simply is to reclaim those streets for the enjoyment of people who live and work there. I'm constantly hearing businesses saying, well, we're actually thinking of moving out of the city because our workers don't feel safe leaving at 5 o'clock and sort of working their way through the crowd. And that has to change.
Tell me how it would work, because the police seem to struggle a little bit to say. They were saying we need to write some operational orders for this. So how does it work? Does someone get moved 100 metres up the road and just cause a problem at McDonald's instead of at KFC, or what?
No. Obviously, we're going to be introducing legislation in the next couple of months. It'll go off to select committee. So the police have a considerable period of time to operationalise this and work out how they do it. Just like they did with the gang patch ban, which everybody said wouldn't work, and it has worked very well. So we're very confident that the police will be able to make it work. In essence, if you're subject to this, you'll be told to move a reasonable distance. Now, that'll be different depending where you are. If you're in Whangarei, it might be different to Auckland. Maybe a kilometre up the road. It might be out of the CBD. But the point is, it applies everywhere in this country. So if you just set up your stall again further up the road, well, then you're subject to another move-on order. And ultimately, it's about sending a clear message that these behaviours are not what we want to see in our city.
At what point do they wind up just, I don't know, in one of those suburbs that you've just managed to defend against the prospect of high-rises? Is this going to push the problem into areas?
No, because it'll apply equally there. And what we're trying to assert is that our main streets, our public places, are places where people should feel welcome, and there are behaviours that we don't tolerate and we won't tolerate.
So previously, Mark Mitchell was saying, I don't want the police involved in this kind of thing. It's a social services matter. How did you change his mind?
The police aren't dealing. Police always have to deal with a wide range of activities, and this is just one tool that we've got. We've got lots of tools to help people in need, because we are a caring society. We have a very strong welfare state, and we do want to help those who are in need. We've got lots of tools to help them, but we also need some tools to send a clearer message to that small group who don't want that help and don't cooperate and seem to think that it's their right to live on Queen Street and to make life difficult for everybody else who's going about their lawful business.
So I guess this makes sense if you're saying, hey, there's somebody that looks like they're setting up for the night in someone's shop front window and they're going to need to hose it down the next morning. Yep. Presumably that's an easy one. What about, I don't know, a group that sets up in front of a business that wants to stage a protest of some kind against whatever they're doing?
Well, that's absolutely excluded. This is not interfering with free speech and protesting. It's not interfering with busking. It's not interfering with people wanting to raise money for a charity. That's all excluded by this legislation.
So if Brian Tamaki wants to hold a Destiny Church rally at the bottom of town, he's going to be fine under this?
No. It's nothing to do with protests. We're a free and open society. If you want to protest, that's good for you.
There you go. Thank you very much for that, Minister. Look, we'll see how it beds in once the police get a chance to take a look at that and put the rules into practice. That's Justice Minister Paul Goldsmith with us this morning. Right now, if you've got anything to say about any of our topics today, please let us know. You can flick us an email at heraldnow@nzherald.co.nz. That's heraldnow@nzherald.co.nz. Don't send it to Ryan at nzherald.co.nz this morning. He's got the morning off. I'm here instead for you. Right, more revelations this morning regarding the Jevin McKimming saga. The woman at the centre of the case appears to have demanded money from the former Deputy Commissioner of Police, requesting, quote, $600 for every sexual act that occurred between the pair, while urging him to pay up and this will end. Senior investigative reporter Michael Morra has the story.
The Herald can reveal that emails show the woman at the centre of the controversy regarding Jevin McKimming appears to have sent a series of emails to the former Deputy Police Commissioner seeking money for sex acts and emotional harm. The emails, obtained exclusively by the Herald, did not feature in the Independent Police Conduct Authority's report issued last November. They show between February the 9th and February the 18th, 2024, McKimming was sent a series of emails demanding money. One email states the sender wanted $600 for every time I was deceived into performing any sexual act. Just over an hour later, another email said pay up and this will end. On February the 13th, an email sent from another anonymous Gmail account reiterated the request of $600 for every sexual act. That was followed by another email just over 1 minute later, which appeared to suggest the corresponding number of sex acts that required payment. You can email my personal email for an account number, and I estimate around 300 times would do, the email said. The Herald has confirmed that several of the emails were sent from the same Gmail address as emails referred to as being sent by Miss C in the IPCA's report. A source who was close to the investigation told the Herald that emails, including those demanding payment for sex acts, would colour how police approach the complaints about McKimming. The credibility of a complainant is a big deal, they said. When there are 300 emails coming in and lots of allegations, it makes it really difficult to establish if we are going to get this to court. Miss C accused McKimming of sexual assault, including rape. However, a criminal investigation into those allegations in late 2024 did not result in McKimming being charged because of a lack of evidence. The IPCA criticised police for not investigating Miss C's claims earlier, citing inaction and a reliance on McKimming's version of events. In a statement provided to the Herald, Miss C did not admit or deny being the sender of the emails obtained by the Herald. She did say, though, I accept that not every step I took in raising my concerns was the right one. Despite the police decision not to charge McKimming for sexual offending, Miss C has repeated claims that she was abused by him. She said her primary motivation was to ensure he was held to account. I regret some aspects of how I sought to have those concerns addressed, she told the Herald. McKimming declined to comment on the nature of the emails when approached by the Herald. For the New Zealand Herald, Michael Morrow.
And you can read Michael's full story. It's up on the Herald's app right now. Don't dash to it straight away though, because here we have the New Zealand Resident Doctors Association, which is warning people could die if physician assistants are left to treat undiagnosed patients without a doctor in the room. It comes as proposed regulation would let them see patients on their own. Joining me here is Deborah Powell from the New Zealand Resident Doctors Association here at the desk. Good morning.
Good morning, Garth.
Deborah, quite a strong claim that people could die. I want to get to that, but can you just tell me first of all what a clinician assistant or a assistant physician or whatever you want to call it actually is?
Okay, well this is a foreign workforce to us here in New Zealand. They've come from the US, they've been in the UK, which is relevant here, and essentially they've got a 2-year qualification, and then they work in the healthcare system. Now, they're foreign to us because there's no role they claim to perform that we don't already have a workforce performing here in New Zealand, be it a nurse, a doctor, a physio, a paramedic. You know, we have all the workforces here. We've got it covered. So they are foreign to us, and they're not trained here in New Zealand. So they're a North American health workforce in a different health system, of course. So
this is someone effectively who's trained to a lesser level than a fully qualified doctor?
Absolutely, lesser trained than a nurse.
And so, so your concern is that people could die. How do you make that claim?
Well, they were, as I say, they were originally a North American workforce, and they moved into the UK, into the NHS. The NHS mucked up the regulation, putting it bluntly, and that resulted in a report because of the number of patient deaths and adverse harm that came to patients. And it's that report which recorded at least 6 deaths as a result of these people seeing what we call undifferentiated patients. They haven't got a diagnosis yet, and that's where our number one concern is, that it takes a lot of training, a lot of skill to be able to differentiate the diagnosis in a patient. Doctors spend years honing that skill, and if you don't get it right, either people get treated for the wrong thing or don't get treated at all, things get missed, and unfortunately if things get missed, patients die. So that's our number one concern, that patients who need to be diagnosed, they should stay with the doctors. These people should not be involved in their care.
Which sounds like there's not a no role for them, right? That you're saying that it's just that a doctor should see a patient first, a fully qualified physician, and say you've got X, Y or Z, or that sounds like it could be a heart attack rather than just a cough. And then someone like this could step in and actually supply some of the care that's required. That's fair enough?
Yep, we are saying that, under the supervision of a doctor, obviously, and the doctor would have to make up a treatment plan, but yes, under the supervision of a doctor.
Supervision sounds like a bit of a nightmare, though, if you've got one doctor and a bunch of these people on a ward. Is that how you'd be worried about that too?
Well, almost everyone in healthcare is under supervision of somewhere. My own members are under the supervision of senior doctors. So, yeah, we work independently. We are registered medical practitioners, but we've got a senior doctor, a vocationally registered doctor, always available to us, who's keeping an eye on us and helping us, actually, in our training to become better. So supervision isn't an unusual thing in the health sector.
I mean, 6 deaths sounds obviously shocking for those families that would have been involved in that UK study, but in a big health system, you're going to see numbers like that. Are those real concerns, you think, that the same kind of approach could unfold here?
The 6 deaths came amongst hundreds of concerns about adverse patient events. So the 6 deaths, yes, they stand out, and obviously the ultimate toll on the patient, but there were a whole lot of concerns that led to this official inquiry in the UK. It was the Ling inquiry. Professor Ling led it. And so that is the headline, I guess. But there were a lot of other adverse events that occurred because of the loose regulation around these people. And we'd just like to avoid that happening here in New Zealand.
So this is something that's still under consideration. You're sort of making a strong claim representing the resident doctors that word doctor, physician needs to just stay with people that have had the full...
Absolutely. It was another finding of the Ling report that the use of the word physician, people thought they were seeing a doctor because, of course, in our society, physician is doctor. So the second recommendation from the Ling report that we've picked up on is these people should be called clinical assistants. So there's no confusion in the minds of the public that they're not seeing a doctor. It just allows public to go, well, hang on a sec, I think I might go and see a doctor and make sure I've got this right.
Thank you for coming and seeing us this morning there. That's Deborah Powell, the New Zealand Resident Doctors Association National Secretary. It's 7:20. Next, the Americans continue to ramp up the pressure on Iran. Will it be war or peace? International affairs expert Professor Anthony Gleeson is next. Then we're crossing to Milano Cortina to talk with the head of New Zealand's Winter Olympics team, Marty Toomey.
Stop paying the waiting tax. The money you could miss out on by delaying the start of your investment journey. Up your tempo with Tempo, the guided investment app that helps you get started. Don't delay because you don't think you have enough time, money, or know-how. All you need is a goal, and our guidance will help with the rest. You can do it. We can help. Here's how. Download Tempo now.
Hip-hop and R&B. Flavor.
Here she is. How's the business going?
Good, actually. We just switched to 2 degrees. Well, we tested the networks and couldn't see any difference. But 2 degrees has the most satisfied customers. With Flex, we get instant control of phone plans, data usage, and cost center reporting. And they're the fastest growing business network.
Can I have what she's having?
Ready?
One Roof Property. Love where you live.
The New Zealand Herald. News worth knowing.
Right, the British government is thinking about a law to remove former Prince Andrew from the line of succession. The King's already stripped him of all his titles, but Andrew Mountbatten-Windsor remains 8th in line to the British throne. It comes as police stepped up their investigation and carried out more searches of Mountbatten-Windsor's home. Police vans were seen leaving the gates of Royal Lodge in Windsor early this morning. Andrew Mountbatten Windsor was arrested and held for hours in police custody on Friday, suspected of having passed confidential information to the late sex offender Jeffrey Epstein as part of his role as a UK trade envoy. Right, the 2026 Milano Cortina Winter Olympics have wrapped up. And so we'll be hoping to hear shortly from them, but just looking at the results there overnight, I mean, pretty outstanding kind of result for the US team there that managed to pull off a 2-1 victory against the Canadians to snatch a gold. I think it was their first win since about the 1980s. So a sad day for anyone out there that 1980s. Since a sad day for anyone out there that's a massive fan of Canadian hockey and wants to sort of see the Stanley Cup go back to its rightful place north of the border one day. But, you know, I guess another reason, some very, very bullish tweets there from Donald Trump overnight as well, who was clearly following the game and channeling some of his aggression into what he could talk to, you know, that didn't involve the tariffs and so on, which is probably good news for the rest of us. Let's just hope that he stays locked to that for a little bit longer. In terms of New Zealand's results, well, you know, we're 22nd on the medals table. We're bringing home some silverware and a little bit of bronze. And you'd have to say that that's a pretty good result for New Zealand, considering that it wasn't that long ago that turning up with any kind of medal was considered a massive result. Now, hearing me babbling away about the results there, hopefully was the chef de mission Marty Toomey, who is joining us to reflect on the Kiwi team's performance and what it means for New Zealand's snow sport. Marty, can you hear me?
Yeah, I definitely can, Garth. Good morning.
Good morning. Hey, look, it looks like a lovely bright morning there, although I think it's a photo there behind you, but hopefully it's the weather's just as sharp at Livigno in Italy this morning. Hey, look, I guess straight off, what sort of a games has it been now that you can look back on it?
Yeah, I think lots of different things. I mean, in terms of a venue, it's been sensational. The Italians love their winter sport, so they've been really, really supportive. They've been really great hosts. So that's made that, you know, the overarching piece really good. And then I think we've had a young team that I think have actually done incredibly well, not just in terms of the performance, but the way they've represented the country on that world stage.
With I guess looking at that medal tally and comparing it with Beijing, when you know they managed to pull off a gold, and I say we, it's always sort of a huge amount of individual endeavour in these things, but you kind of feel like the country owns the result. Does that any reflections there on the comparisons between how we did in Beijing and how we've done here?
Yeah, look, I think the thing with winter sport is the margins are tiny. You know, it's one small little squeak on a slippery surface, and that can be the difference between gold, silver, bronze, qualifying for a final, or, you know, just missing the podium. And we had plenty of opportunities. We couldn't quite convert, but, you know, the athletes gave absolutely everything they could, and I think they did really, really well.
Fair to say there's a bit of chat around, I suppose, that because of the subjective nature in a way, because these are judged events, rather than just a sort of a hard number, you know, you cross the line first, second or third according to the timing clock in sprinting or speed skating, for example. I mean, is there a little sense that maybe the chances weren't missed as much as the performances were passed over?
Oh, look, I think you look at anything like that and you can always find something. You know, in every athlete's run, particularly if you're talking a slope style, you've got 3 rail sections, 3 jumps, there's 6 features that can be judged. And sometimes, you know, you always think one may have been judged harshly. But look, I think by and large, the athletes and the coaches were pretty comfortable with how the ratings came out. They might not have agreed with the actual scores, but the ratings, I think people looked at in the end and went, yeah, that's probably fair.
Speaking of comfort, I suppose, how's young Finn after he fell and broke his collarbone, I think?
Yeah, he's good now. He had a couple of nights in hospital, just under observation. Obviously, a pretty big head knock as well. But yeah, he's now out of hospital, back in the care of mum and dad, and we'll spend a bit of time in Europe before he flies home.
Yeah. Hey, so Luca Harrington, I understand, has been named to carry the flag at the closing ceremony. What sort of thought went into that?
I think a lot of it, we have the opportunity to have a male and a female flag bearer. And we always, like, at the end of the games, it's really nice to reward those athletes who have done really well. You know, they've had a successful games. Zoe's not attending the closing ceremony, so my opportunity was to look at the quality of the people, the quality of the results, and Lucas stood out. He's the kind of guy that earned the right to be there. He's had a really successful game on debut, 2 finals, and just the way he went about his business. He was disappointed with not winning a medal in the big air, which is one of his preferred disciplines, obviously, but he just kept doing everything possible, supporting the team, supporting his brother Ben, who was about to come up in his competition. And it makes it pretty easy, really, when you look at the people that are there to pick someone with that kind of quality and just say, you go out there, you carry the flag and have the team behind you.
Oh, not just the team, the whole nation there. Thanks very much. That's Marty Toomey, chef de mission for the New Zealand team, wrapping up the 2026 Winter Olympics there in Milano Cortina. As we heard earlier, a man has been shot dead by Secret Service agents after trying to enter Donald Trump's Mar-a-Lago estate. That's what the US authorities are telling us this morning. The man was seen by the north of the gate at the Florida property at around 1:30 a.m. local time on Sunday, carrying what appeared to be a shotgun and a fuel can. US media have identified him as 21-year-old Austin Tucker Martin. At the time, Trump was at the White House for a state governor's dinner, where he was talking up the US military.
And our military is more powerful than ever before, and we're just respected all over the world. Like I would say, we have maybe never been, but certainly not for many decades.
Fair to say as well that there were some observations he was quietly seething there, President Trump, at the news that the Supreme Court had overturned his emergency tariffs regime that he put in place for Liberation Day, as he called it, back in April. And, was fairly guarded in his remarks, but had been sort of spraying it around on Truth Social and other places well beforehand. So clearly sort of obviously wanting to channel his aggression and attention into other areas there. Look, international relations expert Anthony Glees is, I believe, on the line now to break down this and discuss what else is happening around the world. Anthony, good morning.
Hi, good morning to you in New Zealand.
Thank you for joining us. Hey, look, if we can, I want to start with that rather sort of shocking move around tariffs and also the picture regarding Iran at the moment. Was the tariffs thing, what do you think the fallout from that is likely to be?
Well, Garth, that is a very difficult question. And everybody, I think, in the British government is running around like a headless chicken at the moment. On so many fronts, Sir Keir Starmer is assailed. And Trump's shenanigans with these tariffs will be kind of seen as the last straw, I think. Everybody knows in Britain, Sir Keir Starmer, his government, have bent over backwards to accommodate President Trump, particularly on the tariff issue, trying to exploit so-called Brexit freedoms to get Britain a better deal than it would have had were we still in the European Union. And the way things are right now is that Britain is in exactly the same bad position as is the European Union. The big difference is Britain has no clout. So the European Union's saying they're, asking Trump to think again and reconsider his rash decision. Meanwhile, Britain has just to stay there and take whatever punishment is meted out. And it's not made any better by the fact that Sir Keir Starmer reportedly has said that Trump cannot use UK bases to bomb Iran because Trump is cross allegedly with the deal that he's doing over Diego Garcia in the Indian Ocean. So it's a complete mess up. I could use a cruder word, but I'm not going to do that.
Yeah, this is regarding that, so the Chagos Islands group, which is probably no one's ever heard of. They're so well off the coast of Africa and the Indian Ocean. And there's a deal to pass those back or hand control of them to Mauritius, right? And Trump's come out sort of fuming about this because this is a crucial base. Does that really interrupt his ability to actually conduct policy?
He's changed his mind. On the whole, when America says to Britain, jump, Britain says, yes, how high? And that is exactly what happened here. The trouble is, Trump has changed his mind, not least, we're told, because senior conservatives, Sir Ian Duncan Smith, went over to Washington and said, look, we can't give up the Chagos Islands and the important base at Diego Garcia. My personal opinion, I'm just a pointy-headed academic, my personal opinion is if Trump wants Diego Garcia, sell it to him. Let him have it. It's of no use to Britain. We're not an imperial power any longer. It's complete nonsense. Sell it to him. He likes real estate. Here's a bit of prime real estate in the Pacific Ocean.
Yeah. Look, I mean, all joking aside, though, things are at a fairly tense point in the Gulf at the moment. You've got this sort of deadline that's ticking down that Trump indicated last week, speaking in not at all veiled language about very bad things happening if they don't decide to strike a deal on the nuclear arrangement, which took years to negotiate under the Obama administration and seems to have been sort of they're trying to fast forward this. Where are we headed?
Well, I think it's generally accepted that Trump likes to make threats, but he does not like to involve America in forever wars. And one thing is for sure, that if the Americans try and bomb the Ayatollahs out of power in Iran, there will be a widespread war, an internal war in Iran, but also almost certainly a wider war in the entire region. It will be a repeat of what Trump himself said was the era of getting rid of Saddam Hussein in Iraq. So I think that Trump will try to do everything he can to frighten the Ayatollahs into producing some sort of a deal short of attacking them. However, if Trump wishes to continue to have credibility on the international stage, and he makes a threat and the Ayatollahs don't play ball with him, then Trump will be forced into action. And he got a huge armada, his own word for it. 2 mighty aircraft carriers in the region, the Gerald R. Ford and the Abraham Lincoln. They can obliterate the government in Tehran, but we should never forget, however odd it seems to us, there are very many supporters of the Ayatollahs in Iran. And any attempt by America will mean that the Iranians they'll close the Straits of Hormuz, they'll freeze international trade and shipping. There's a lot of venom left in that regime, and they're not going anywhere anytime soon. So I think Trump is thrashing about. As I've said it before, I think he's getting too old for this game, making threats left, right and centre, and the world is really getting fed up with him.
Anthony Glees, international relations expert, thanks very much for your time and for your insights there this morning. Right, it is a little after 7:30, 7:36. It's definitely time for the news with Neva.
Herald Now News, powered by Newstalk ZB.
Concern from community housing providers that newly proposed move-on orders could drive people away from help. The government's moving to allow police to take action on people who are begging and sleeping rough. They'll have the power to order people to leave a public space for up to 24 hours, with fines of up to $2,000 or 3 months in jail. Community Housing Aotearoa Chief Executive Paul Gilbert says that the rough sleepers they're seeing on the streets are just the tip of the iceberg. He says there's people couch surfing, sleeping in cars or hidden away elsewhere. The world is waiting for Donald Trump's next move as he appears to ignore the Supreme Court's latest ruling. The US president announced a new 10% global tariff on Saturday, then yesterday increased it to 15%. It followed his outrage the Supreme Court ruled that his tariff hikes last year were illegal. Otago University International Relations Professor Robert Patman says Trump's arbitrary use of tariffs is inconsistent with a rules-based world order. Meanwhile, a man has been shot and killed after entering the perimeter of President Donald Trump's resort in Palm Beach in Florida. The white male in his early 20s entered the secure perimeter at Mar-a-Lago around 1:30 a.m. before he was shot by agents and a Palm Beach deputy. The North Carolina man was reported missing a few days ago by his family. The President and First Lady were not on the premises. The woman at the centre of the Jevin McKimming scandal appears to have demanded money from the former Deputy Police Commissioner. In December, McKimming received 9 months home detention for possessing questionable material. A tranche of emails obtained by the Herald suggests the woman, known as Miss Z, asked for money between February 9th and 18th, 2024. Herald reporter Michael Morris says that the emails did not feature in the scathing IPCA report released in December. He says one states the sender wanted $600 for every time they were deceived into performing any sexual act. Ms. Z has not confirmed or denied whether she wrote the emails. Taxpayers have spent $58 million on redundancy payouts after Health NZ cut thousands of jobs in cost-saving drive. Official Information Act figures show that the money went to voluntary redundancies and early exits for non-clinical staff between November 2023 and December last year. The Public Service Association estimates nearly 2,800 workers left during that time. National Secretary Fleur Fitzsimon says it's a shameful outcome of reckless government cost-cutting during a health funding crisis and warns patients will ultimately pay the price.
Herald Now weather.
Morena, for most of us, it's a sunny looking start to the week thanks to high pressure built right across the country. There is this next front, this band of wet weather arriving in the far southwest later on, but for most of us it's a dry and sunny Monday. And even here in the south it starts off pretty decent, plenty of clear sky and sunshine. The clouds starting to thicken up as we head through the afternoon, that wet weather arriving in as we head towards the end of the day. Up this western coast towards Tasman, Marlborough and down through Canterbury. Again, plenty of dry weather, just the cloud thickening up as we head in towards the afternoon. And that dry weather extends on towards the North Island as well. Plenty of sunny weather right the way from Wellington around towards Taranaki. Just a touch more cloud as we head through the afternoon. And that cloud will also begin to build and bubble away across the tops of, say, the Raukumara range up here in the Tairāwhiti region, bringing an odd shower, but very much most of us will keep hold of that dry weather. Just a little bit more cloud through the afternoon. That extends right the way towards Northland and Auckland, with highs in Auckland of 23 degrees Celsius.
Right, time now to talk business, thanks to our partners Forsyth Bar. And from Business Desk, we have senior reporter Thomas Manch on the line from Wellington, our nation's capital. Good morning, Thomas.
Good morning, Garth. How you doing?
Fantastic. Hey, look, in a semi-irregular segment we might want to call #WhoIsBro, you're going to tell me about our sort of very own version of Elon Musk. Tell me about Matthew Horncastle.
Yeah, so Horncastle, he might not be building rocket ships or cars, but he is building houses, and he is at the same time cultivating quite a polarizing sort of character on social media, not unlike the man Musk himself. Horncastle is one of the co-founders of Williams Corp. It's a residential house builder. They primarily been known in Christchurch, where it was one of the largest house builders there for a moment. And he's been making a name for himself on social media. He's been spouting off about his political views on what's good, such as lifting weights and greed, and what's bad, such as taxes and fluoride. And he gets about 15 million views a month at the moment. And you might think, well, who cares? There's plenty of people who spout off on social media, But as our reporter Cecile Meyer explains in a piece this morning on Business Desk website, Williams Corp is looking to head to the stock exchange next year. And, Horncastle's polarizing social media hobby could sort of compromise the confidence of investors. But he says, hey, I don't care. And he's even floating a suggestion that he may get into politics. So something to look out for. And obviously a bit of a Musk-like character operating in New Zealand.
Yeah, I guess, if you're going to put your money behind someone, it's different from putting your vote behind them. And potentially, as you say, investors might want to look carefully at how much attention he's giving to his business if he's got a lot of time for chat on socials.
Definitely.
Hey, look, just to maybe more serious matters, we had the vote last week on the capital distribution from Fonterra, but that whole deal with Lactalis, the French company, that kind of left another big company jilted at the altar. Bega, what's happening there?
Yeah, so we didn't hear I don't recall hearing as much about Bega last year, but our reporter Riley Kennedy has been, he's reported this morning got a little bit of a glimpse at them last week with their half-year returns, and they're still kind of ticking up. They've got revenue of up 5% and their earnings are up. But, there was obviously a big question about sort of what now, given that they missed out on the Fonterra deal. It was reported that they put in a $3.5 billion bid for those Fonterra brands, and Lactalis obviously won out with a $4.2 billion bid. You know, the message from Bega, which has brands including Vegemite and craft products and Yoplait, as well as their sort of dairy processing business, is that, you know, even though they haven't been able to consolidate the dairy market in Australia and New Zealand as they hoped by winning that purchase, they're going to still look to other mergers, and they still have a lot of optimism about opportunities out there. So, you know, as you know, could be more moves on supermarket shelves in the future, and, you know, look out for that. But obviously, they're also keeping an eye on that Fonterra deal and what it might mean for their spot on the market. And that deal obviously yet to be, you know, signed, sealed, delivered. So good to go there.
Yeah, it makes you wonder, I suppose, whether they just couldn't meet the market price, or whether the 4.2 billion that Lactalis is paying was maybe a little bit over the odds. What do they see in there, or why did they feel they had to sort of pay so handsomely for that? Hey, look, we haven't talked about the tariffs yet. Obviously, big news over the weekend with the US Supreme Court saying, sorry, Donald Trump, your emergency tariffs are just not enforceable and you might have to pay some refunds. And then Trump coming back and saying 10%, no, 15%. What are we seeing already in terms of impact?
Well, really hard to divine. You know, I think when it comes to tariffs, the honest answer is like, who knows, right? You know, given that it could change all with a social media post, or a Truth Social post, I should say. You know, there's a lot of different factors at play when there's a shift in tariffs. A lot of questions, not only for our exporters, but how to play sort of with all the sort of exporters in different markets that are trying to head into the US. You know, will the cost be passed on to consumers? Will consumption dampen? Will, you know, the comparative competition change? You know, it's with the 15% tariff, I think New Zealand's roughly in a similar position as before, but the likes of China and Brazil, for instance, have a lesser tariff now. And I just thought maybe it'd be helpful to talk about what it looked like last year when the tariffs first came into play. And so there were some numbers done by MFAT, the Ministry of Trade, Foreign Affairs and Trade, that showed that exports were very volatile through the months after those tariffs came into play. There was an increase in exports as people front-loaded before the tariffs came into effect. We're probably not going to see that this time around, obviously. There was a constriction afterwards, and then a sort of a modest bounce back. So, you know, with that volatility, there might become sort of altered trade flows in the coming months.
Right.
For New Zealand's interest in particular, wine exports have been particularly hard hit. Just to give an example, in May, decreased 7.8%, then 10.5% in June, and then 40.8% in July. And so we haven't had more recent data yet, I don't believe, but the basic message is it's not getting easier to trade in the US, and after this weekend, that holds.
Okay, Thomas Manch from Business Desk, Senior Reporter, thanks very much for providing that analysis and hopefully shining a bit of a light there. And we talk business thanks to our partners, Forsyth Bar, every day. Next, we'll have your Monday Markets, again with some help from Forsyth Bar. Then the boys are in to talk sport. Back soon.
Know more of the story with Herald Premium, giving you full access to in-depth news, opinion and analysis, with more world news, business insights, and investigative reports from our world-class team of journalists. Plus subscriber-only functionality to comment on stories, access newspaper e-editions, gift articles, and enjoy crosswords and puzzles. Subscribe now to Herald Premium.
When building for investment, it's important to find a team that you can trust.
We decided to build the GJs because they're good quality that they always provide us.
They've helped us throughout the whole process of getting the resource consent to the building consent, and their contracts are very easy to understand. We have built 4 houses with GJ Gardeners, and it's just easier every time we work with them.
I'll definitely recommend GJs to all of my friends and family.
If you're thinking of building, choose the builder you'll want to build with time and time again.
Luke Combs, Morgan Wallen, Kaylee Bell, Jelly Roll, Megan Moroney, Chris Stapleton. All the country stars have come to play on the all-new iHeart Country NZ. Your new home for country is iHeart Country NZ.
Right, time for a look at the markets. Thanks to our partners, Forsyth Barr, and joining me on the line is Zoe Wallace, investment strategist from Forsyth Barr. Good morning, Zoe.
Good morning.
Let's start with those, the tariff and trade outlook and the fallout, I suppose, from the news over the weekend. How's that landing?
Yeah, obviously a pretty interesting one. I mean, when you look at net where we are at in terms of tariffs, there's a couple of things, right? So first of all, we're now back to a 15% tariff for most countries. Important to also note that most of the carve-outs that were in place under the IEEPA ones, the previous tariff, sort of broad sweeping tariffs, are actually still in place as well. So that's good news for our beef exporters because there's still a carve-out there. I think probably the other piece, though, is that a couple of countries like the UK and Australia who did have a 10% blanket tariff rate have now gone up to 15%. So not such great news for our neighbours across the ditch, unfortunately. The other piece is obviously that these tariffs, new tariffs that they've put in place, do have an expiry date of 150 days without congressional approval. So how markets are taking that all so far has been a bit up in the air. I think one of the biggest questions remains is actually whether you see the existing tariffs that have been charged from Liberation Day up until the decision last week will actually have to be repaid.
Yeah, that's a big cost, I guess, fiscally as well, and could be lead to all sorts of lending questions as well for the US federal budget. Hey, look, just looking closely here, we've got results season sort of trundling on. What are you keeping an eye on particularly?
Yeah, another busy week, both in New Zealand, Australia, and a few international results that will be of interest as well, including Nvidia and Salesforce, just given some of the volatility around software services and stocks we've seen over the last couple of weeks. Nvidia is obviously a big bellwether for global markets, so that'll be a key one around the AI trade. Locally, look, what we've seen to date is that New Zealand reporting season has generally been relatively robust. We're seeing some positive signs coming through after a pretty tough couple of years, starting to see that turning point gain further traction in terms of what we're seeing on the ground. We'll be looking for more evidence of that as we go through this week as well.
Sure. In Australia, I think we've got some more inflation chat coming this week. What are we expecting there?
Yeah, obviously following the Reserve Bank of Australia's decision to hike interest rates in February, that will be a key one out this week. So markets are looking for a small moderation in inflation, just down to 3.7% from 3.8%, still well above the midpoint of that 2 to 3% target range that the RBA is aiming for. We've also got a speech out actually from RBA Governor Bullock this week. That will also be closely watched, but markets are definitely expecting at least one more rate hike from the RBA.
Yeah, they let it run, didn't they? Zoe Wallace from Forsyth Barr, thank you very much this morning for that market update. Right, next politics with Thomas Coughlan, and then the boys are in to talk sport. And after the news at 8, we'll have Trade Minister Todd McClay, who will join me to talk about the impact of those Trump tariffs on New Zealand.
Maximising productivity, what have you got?
Well, if we switch to 2 degrees, with Flex for Business, we can instantly manage data usage, employee mobile plans, and cost centre reporting, saving us time and money. Cool. I'll get onto that then. Mm-hmm.
We done few subdivision with GJ Gardner, and from the resource consent to the building consent, getting the council permits and stuff, always GJ Gardners are ahead and helping us out through the whole process, and it was so easy working with GJ.
Speaking to the acting Prime Minister, does he stand by all of it?
You don't shout out like some bunch of clowns at university.
My message to the union is very clear. Don't use... We're going to fix our borders, we're going to fix everything.
The New Zealand Herald, news worth knowing.
You're with Ryan Bridge today with me, Garth Bray. Look, joining us now to look at what's happened in politics over the weekend and what's on the menu at Parliament this week is the New Zealand Herald political editor, Thomas Coughlan, live from our nation's capital. Good morning.
Morning, Garth.
Hey, look, we had the Minister of Justice, Paul Goldsmith, on earlier talking about that power that they're going to grant police to effectively move people along in situations where there might be rough sleeping or setting up in the doorways of shops around the country and so on. How do you think the messaging of this has gone? How do you think it's likely to land?
Well, it's an interesting one because we've known about it for some time. It sort of leaked out a couple of months ago, actually at the end of last year, that the government was looking at policy in this area. And the sort of genesis of this was sort of some ideas that came out of that now disbanded retail crime group. At the time, it was controversial. The opposition obviously didn't like it. It's not really their kind of cup of tea. We actually haven't seen much in terms of public opinion polling on the idea, so we don't know how it will land with the general public. It's certainly true that one of the things that the government, the current government, won the election on was law and order issues, and as the public's appetite for this government has disappeared in the last couple of years. Obviously, it's less popular on issues like the economy. It's losing on issues like health and education. Law and order is one of the few policy areas where this government is still quite popular, and it does still have something of a public mandate for law and order issues. Perhaps because it is willing to go a wee bit further and do some of these slightly more tough, more controversial things than a Labour Greens government would do. So I would say that the messaging sort of leaned into the fact that they are quite confident that they are taking the public where they want to be, where the public wants to be on issues like law and order. Whether or not it actually works is something quite different. There could be challenges in terms of pushing people out to the suburbs from the CBD. A lot of rough sleeping happens in the CBD, and obviously moving people on could mean that you move people from rough sleepers from being where people work and shop to being where they actually live.
Yeah, putting the problem out where they've just managed to sort of head that off, I suppose, around some of the heritage rulings in Auckland particularly anyway. Hey, look, just last week, obviously, we had a pretty cautiously optimistic summary from the Reserve Bank. And the prospect of sort of quite a delay on interest rate rises there, where some were expecting. How is that likely to impact, the election and what parties are going to make of it?
I think it can only be seen as a net positive. I think if you were to go into a Christopher Luxon, Nicola Willis dream scenario, you would have interest rates really, really low for a very long time, right the way up into the election. Now that dream scenario is clearly not going to happen. So the next best thing is to have an OCR hike when it comes to happen after the election, and then for the actual interest rates that people are paying, the interest rates that their banks actually charge, for those to remain relatively stable throughout the year. So you would want to ensure that the markets where banks are actually getting their funding from remain cheap enough for low affordable interest rates to be charged.
All right. Thomas, we'll stay in touch across the week and sort of see where that lands, but thanks very much for that analysis of things so far. Thomas Coughlan, the New Zealand Herald political editor. Now, if you've got anything to say about any of our topics today, then please let us know. Flick us an email, heraldnow@nzherald.co.nz, heraldnow@nzherald.co.nz. We'd love to hear your thoughts. All right, the boys are in to talk sport. Joining me here from across the room is Nathan Lim and Alex Powell, both keen Herald sports reporters. Gentlemen, should we start with the Winter Olympics?
Go on then.
Go on. We had Marty Toomey on sort of talking about what a great result it is to get 3 medals, even if they're not quite as flash and shiny as last time around. I mean, once upon a time, a medal at the Winter Olympics was a dream for New Zealand. So have we done enough for the Mallow Puff?
You'd say, yeah. New Zealand is still quite young as a Winter Olympics country. You look at the team every 4 years, and they basically just come out of one school down in Wanaka.
Should we call this a win for Mount Aspiring College?
Absolutely.
Basically?
Yeah, we probably
should.
But yeah, so I think when you look at how young these athletes tend to be, it's always you're looking at the next Winter Olympics, and I know obviously that always carries on and on and on. But to get 3 medals, Zoe Sadowski-Sinnott's now second into Lisa Carrington for New Zealand. I think that's an absolute win.
Yeah. You were following it much yourself?
Yeah. I suppose it is a little disappointing not to get the goal, not to get a gold. I suppose Zoe Zdowski-Synnott would have been expected to win at least one. But having said that, becoming the second equal most decorated Olympian, that is an incredible achievement. I foresee, high school gymnasiums emblazoned with her picture up and down the country in the future, and she hasn't indicated at all that she's done, so she could go even further when we do look ahead to the next game. So that's got to be a real highlight and something to be celebrated.
Yeah, I guess, and like you say, with sort of at such a young age, and hopefully as long as the body holds up, they're great. Hey, look, I was at a concert on Saturday night, and they didn't need a warm-up act because everyone was talking about that shocking result from the Phoenix, and most importantly, the coach quitting basically, effectively. What's gone on there, Nathan?
I suppose it's the nature of the loss. Giancarlo Italiano resigned immediately after the 5-0 defeat, and he talked in the press conference about how it's just unacceptable, and if his favourite team lost to their arch rivals 5-0, he'd want the coach to resign. So I guess he talked about it from a real personal point of view and just said that kind of performance isn't acceptable. They've had 6 derby games and they've lost all 6, and it hasn't been particularly close in many of them. So it is really disappointing, but I suppose I do have a respect for Italiano in making that decision. He obviously really cares about the team and its success.
See, I'm going to interject because it just seems like he's jumping before he's pushed. His contract's up at the end of the season, wasn't going to be renewed. You do really have to call into question the Phoenix's mentality and their business model as a club. Auckland FC have come in, every dollar that's available to spend has been spent for them to win. The Phoenix's whole operation seems to just be develop young players and then sell them on for huge profits, which they did brilliantly a few years ago when they got to that, that run all the way to the semi-final. But then that money wasn't reinvested, and now this is the result. They're just not good enough.
Yeah, hard to see anyone paying strong money for a goalkeeper that manages to head it in from the penalty box and score an own goal, right?
Well, yeah, but they're exactly right. They're trying to do it on the cheap. You're replacing Alex Paulson with someone who just clearly isn't at the level.
Yeah, right. And I guess as well, if it's seven in a row, or 6 in a row, sorry, that they'd lost there, should he have gone earlier?
Potentially. The Phoenix were having a really rough season. I would have been surprised if he had gone earlier, and he has shown some good signs over I suppose his entire tenure, but this year has just been shocking for the Phoenix.
If we talk about Auckland, what are they, sort of second on the table at the moment, if they got hopes of hanging on to that premiership?
Yeah.
I think they absolutely should. They probably did learn their lesson last season about peaking too early and now just leaving their run late. Winning the Premier's Plate, while a very good achievement, doesn't actually mean much if you're not lifting the A-League title itself a few weeks later, which is what happened to them last year. So I think they'll have taken that on board and they'll know when they actually need to start trying to peak.
Mind you, as Boris Johnson said to me once, it's good to have peaked at all. Gentlemen, that is sport for us this morning. Nathan Lim and Alex Powell, thank you very much for your time, and we will be back after some news. Good morning and welcome to Ryan Bridge Today with me, Garth Bray. It's Monday, the 23rd of February, and on the show today, it's Trump's tariff tantrum after the Supreme Court declared his tariffs were illegal. The president's gone and slapped a 15% tariff on everyone, so where does that leave Kiwi exporters? Trade Minister Todd McClay on that in about 5 minutes' time. The police are getting new powers to crack down on beggars and people displaying disorderly, disruptive, threatening or intimidating behaviour. Quite the catch-all, so will it help? The panel on that in 15 minutes. And charging your electric car from 0 to full in 5 minutes. It's the game changer plenty have been waiting for, and now it's coming here. All the details after 8:30. Plus, some claims that cults are actively recruiting at our universities. How do you spot them? And how do you stop them? Expert advice soon.
Herald Now News. Powered by Newstalk ZB.
Concern from community housing providers that newly proposed move-on orders could drive people away from help. The government's moving to allow police to take action on people who are begging and sleeping rough. They'll have the power to order people to leave a public space for up to 24 hours with fines of up to $2,000 or 3 months in jail. Community Housing Aotearoa Chief Executive Paul Gilbert says that the rough sleepers they're seeing on the streets are just the tip of the iceberg. He says there's people couch surfing, sleeping in cars or hidden away elsewhere. The world is waiting for Donald Trump's next move as he appears to ignore the Supreme Court's latest ruling. The US president announced a new 10% global tariff on Saturday, then yesterday increased it to 15%. It followed his outrage the Supreme Court ruled that his tariff hikes last year were illegal. Otago University International Relations professor Robert Patman says Trump's arbitrary use of tariffs is inconsistent with a rules-based world order. Meanwhile, a man has been shot and killed after entering the perimeter of President Donald Trump's resort in Palm Beach in Florida. The white male in his early 20s entered the secure perimeter at Mar-a-Lago around 1:30 a.m. before he was shot by agents and a Palm Beach deputy. The North Carolina man was reported missing a few days ago by his family. The President and First Lady were not on the premises. The woman at the centre of the McKimming scandal appears to have demanded money from the former Deputy Police Commissioner. In December, McKimming received 9 months home detention for possessing questionable material. A tranche of emails obtained by the Herald suggests the woman, known as Miss Z, asked for money between February 9th and 18th, 2024. Herald reporter Michael Morris says that the emails did not feature in the scathing IPCA report released in December. He says one states the sender wanted $600 for every time they were deceived into performing any sexual act. Ms. Z has not confirmed or denied whether she wrote the emails. Taxpayers have spent $58 million on redundancy payouts after Health NZ cut thousands of jobs in cost-saving drive. Official Information Act figures show that the money went to voluntary redundancies and early exits for non-clinical staff between November 2023 and December last year. The Public Service Association estimates nearly 2,800 workers left during that time. National Secretary Fleur Fitzsimons says it's a shameful outcome of reckless government cost-cutting during a health funding crisis and warns patients will ultimately pay the price.
Herald Now Sport, brought to you by Gold Sport.
Competition at the Milan Cortina Olympics is complete, with New Zealand 22nd on the medal table. 17-year-old Misha Thomas wrapped the campaign with 8th in the women's free ski halfpipe. The Breakers have defeated the 36ers 111-107 to claim ANBL Basketball's inaugural Ignite Cup final on the Gold Coast, despite missing the overall season playoffs. Central Districts have claimed the Ford Trophy cricket title, courtesy of a 6-wicket win over Canterbury in the final at Wellington.
Herald Now Weather.
Morena, for most of us, it's a sunny looking start to the week thanks to high pressure built right across the country. There is this next front, this band of wet weather arriving in the far southwest later on, but for most of us it's a dry and sunny Monday. And even here in the south it starts off pretty decent, plenty of clear sky and sunshine. The clouds starting to thicken up as we head through the afternoon, that wet weather arriving in as we head towards the end of the day. Up this western coast towards Tasman, Marlborough and down through Canterbury. Again, plenty of dry weather, just the cloud thickening up as we head in towards the afternoon. And that dry weather extends on towards the North Island as well. Plenty of sunny weather right the way from Wellington around towards Taranaki. Just a touch more cloud as we head through the afternoon. And that cloud will also begin to build and bubble away across the tops of, say, the Raukumara range up here in the Tairāwhiti region, bringing an odd shower, but very much most of us will keep hold of that dry weather. Just a little bit more cloud through the afternoon. And it extends right the way towards Northland and Auckland, with highs in Auckland of 23 degrees Celsius.
US President Donald Trump has spoken out after his sweeping tariffs were ruled illegal by the Supreme Court. In a post on Truth Social, he said he'll be doubling down on his new global tariffs, raising them from 10 to 15%. It's not quite doubling. He said the raise will come effective immediately and said the move was based on a review of the, quote, ridiculous, poorly written and extraordinarily anti-American decision issued by the Supreme Court. The move came as businesses and governments around the world sought repayment for the estimated $133 billion that Washington has already collected. Trade Minister Todd McClay joins me from Rotorua to tell us if there is any relief in sight for New Zealand businesses. Good morning, Minister. Looks like a great day in Rotorua there.
Good morning. Sun's shining. Everybody should come and visit.
Well, maybe they will now that they can afford to. Look, any good news at all there from this?
Well, look, it is the potential for good news for New Zealand exporters. Any change to the tariff rate probably is our advantage, but there is ongoing uncertainty. And I hear from many of our exporters that's the biggest challenge for them, the changing nature of tariff rates, the uncertainty. We saw the court agree that the legal base the president used for the tariffs was not legal. He's then said he'll put in 10% and 15%. And so, I think there's going to be ongoing uncertainty for a period of time.
Those, new round of tariffs that he's imposed, as I understand, there's about a 150-day maximum that they can be applied until the White House would have to seek sort of congressional approval. And, we're heading into an election year there where obviously affordability has been a huge thing. So is there a chance that this is it, that his authority to sort of just arbitrarily push up the price of international trade might be at an end?
Yeah, look, we're going to have to really wait and see. I would guess that their legal experts, the presidents, will be going through this at the moment. Ultimately, most New Zealand exporters were facing a 15% tariff anyway. You remember on the so-called Liberation Day, 10%, and then any country that had a surplus against the US went up to 15%. New Zealand's in that category, although we have a very modest surplus. I mean, US exports into New Zealand face just a 0.3% tariff rate on average. So we have made the case consistently. We think the tariffs are unwarranted, that actually New Zealand should be treated differently, but he campaigned on a tariff regime, and I guess that's what we're going to see. Over the next month or so, I think there'll be a lot more court action, particularly around whether or not those tariffs that have been paid should be repaid or not. But we're getting advice pretty quickly from our embassy in Washington, so we can work with New Zealand exporters so they can have as much information as available to them. But then at the same time, they as others have to make decisions as to where they want to put their effort. And if they are feeling there's risk in the US, some of them are looking towards the European Union, or as an example, that India free trade agreement that we did, gives New Zealanders in the future, once we get it in place, huge choice as to where they want to put their goods and services.
I'll get to India because we haven't quite done it yet, have we? But if we look at, wine exports got bounced around pretty heavily by this. Is there any prospect that the government would sort of step in or in any way try to do a bit more than information, actually sort of help some of those businesses either secure greater refunds, or is that just purely something for the courts and something they've got to work out as private companies?
Well, the Supreme Court itself didn't talk about whether refunds of tariff rates should be available. I did see the president was quite critical of that. I think it will get tested out. And so, look, we work very closely with our exporters. You are right, the wine industry has faced challenges into that market, as others have. They've got opportunities elsewhere, China, European Union, and so on. Overall, our trade has not gone down with the US. We are exporting them more now, greater value than we were before the tariff rates came in. That suggests to me that US consumers want high quality products from New Zealand, and I guess with that 15% tariff they're willing to pay more for it because a lot of that tariff rate's being passed on. However, I think this changing nature, as I said, is going to continue. A few months ago the president dropped for beef and kiwi fruit and other products the tariff rate down to 0 or back to what it was beforehand. They don't produce enough beef, they need it. I guess it was a bit inflationary. So unfortunately for our exporters, I think we're going to see the nature of US trade policy continue to change. In the meantime, we have lots of avenues elsewhere. European Union, extra $2 billion worth of sales over the last 18 months with that FTA. That is New Zealanders choosing to go to that market maybe rather than the US.
And that EU FTA, obviously, the EU's trying to strike one, or has struck a deal with India as well. Is the pressure really on you to try and get that deal done for New Zealand before the EU one is fully vested so that we can take advantage of any uplift that their terms and conditions include?
Yes, there's always huge pressure on trade ministers to get trade deals done. After all, that's what our job is. But you are right. I mean, our trade agreement with India is one of the best they've ever struck. And remember, we're 5 million people. They're 1.4 billion. We've done very well here. But we have things in that agreement around wine and services that says if they give better access to other countries, they must automatically extend that to us as well. But we have to have our agreement in place for that to happen. I met with the Labour Party last week. It was the fourth or fifth conversation we've had. We went through things in great detail. Look, it's as straightforward as this. There has always been bipartisanship on trade deals between the two major parties in our parliament. It's right they were asking a couple of questions, but we are getting to the point where I think the business community wants certainty about the way forward. And so, you know, we'll work a little bit more closely with them over the next week or so.
Let's hope so there. Todd McClay, Trade Minister, joining us there from Rotorua. Thank you this morning. Right, next we're off to Christchurch, where they have just marked the 15th anniversary of the deadly earthquake. Then we're talking cults. There are claims they're actively recruiting at our universities. So how do you spot them? How do you stop them? That's in about 6 minutes.
Stop paying the waiting tax. The money you could miss out on by delaying the start of your investment journey. Up your tempo with Tempo, the guided investment app that helps you get started. Don't delay because you don't think you have enough time, money, or know-how. All you need is a goal, and our guidance will help with the rest. You can do it. We can help. Here's how. Download Tempo now.
Hip-hop and R&B. Flavor.
Ah, here she is. How's the business going?
Good, actually. We just switched to 2 degrees. Well, we tested the networks and couldn't see any difference. But 2 degrees has the most satisfied customers. With Flex, we get instant control of phone plans, data usage, and cost center reporting. And they're the fastest growing business network.
Can I have what she's having?
Ready?
One Roof Property. Love where you live.
The New Zealand Herald. News worth knowing.
You're watching Ryan Bridge today with me, Garth Bray. I want to take us now to Christchurch, where a dog attack has left 3 injured, including 1 critically. News Talk ZB South Island News Director Claire Sherwood is on the line. And Claire, tell us what's the latest.
Absolutely. Police were made aware of this incident at a property in Brindwa at mid-afternoon on Saturday. We understand that 3 people are injured following that attack. 1 person's considered critical, another is serious, while the 3rd person has less serious injuries. That said, this obviously comes after the fatal attack of a woman in her 60s in Northland when she was visiting a property only a week prior. We do know as well that later in the afternoon on Saturday, police were also made aware of a more minor attack, but one which did require medical attention by a dog in Timaru. Of course, this has sparked ongoing calls for changes to our dog laws, particularly around whether dog owners should be held responsible for fatal attacks and the like, potentially even being held responsible for that on the grounds of a manslaughter charge. We understand that these dogs involved in the Christchurch attack have been handed over to council officials. Interestingly, council were not aware of these dogs in terms of previous complaints, unlike the Northland attack. So what will happen with them is yet to be decided, but there is the chance that they will be forfeited and given up for euthanasia as a result of what's happened.
Now, Claire, this weekend, obviously, pretty significant anniversary, the 15th anniversary of the last of the Christchurch quakes. How do you think that was marked amongst people down there?
It was interesting, Garth, because the 15th anniversary for me, it felt really quite poignant, and more so than the ones I remember in years gone by. Someone made a good point and said that the 10-year anniversary was, of course, marred by COVID. That happened, 2021, right in the depths of lockdowns, and perhaps wasn't able to be sort of set aside and paid respect to in the same way that we probably would have hoped without COVID. There was the usual gathering at the National Earthquake Memorial along the banks of the Avon River. The likes of the mayor and so on were there laying wreaths, lots of victims' families, some who had travelled from overseas to be here, many saying that they think this will be the last time that they do that, but they do feel like now Christchurch is on track. Of course, there's still the families of the CTV building where 115 people died, and they're continuing to say that their story isn't over, that there is more to come from them. We, of course, know that no one has been held responsible. The ongoing court proceedings with Alan Ray, who designed that building, are still continuing. It's interesting, though, the passage of time is becoming more and more obvious. To give you an example, I was a junior reporter at the time of the quake. It was very much the start of my career. My current intern here in the newsroom was in her first year of primary school at the time that the quake happened. So, it really is a case of us trying to remind people, particularly those coming through in careers like ours, of exactly what the Christchurch earthquake was all about, because the story is well and truly going to continue for decades to come.
Thanks, Claire. I mean, you'd have to say Christchurch is also now the city that a lot of people want to live in. So, look, well done on the rebuild there. That's News Talk ZB's South Island News Director, Claire Shield, with some great observations about the passage of time there. Hey, look, we'll stay in Canterbury, though, because students at the University of Canterbury have been warned to be wary of unofficial groups using aggressive recruiting tactics on campus. Who are these groups? Why are they dangerous? And how can you spot a recruiter? Joining me at the desk is Peter Lynham, a religious history expert. Good morning, sir.
Good morning to you.
Now, okay, we're talking about, I guess, a cult and cults recruiting. There's some sort of discussions around which ones they are. Shincheonji, which is a Korean-based cult, for want of a better word. Mm-hmm. What's the definition here? What are we talking about?
There's no definition of the word cult. Cult just means any religion you don't like. But let's be more precise and say that this is a evangelistic sect which is out to gain as rapidly as possible additional members, and it has every right to do so, but the tactics that they use are pretty offensive to many people. And, universities are a perfect ground for them to recruit in, because here are young students just arrived on campus, intrigued, but perhaps a little bit
separated from family as well, right?
That's right.
Yeah.
And so they're vulnerable, but on the other hand, they're adults. And so you get all these paradoxes. At most campuses today, there are probably 20 or 30 religious groups campaigning, recruiting, and some of these are perfectly ordinary Christian or Muslim groups that are, there's nothing to be frightened of.
It's all about broadening your horizons, I suppose.
Precisely. And this is also a week when everybody's trying to recruit students for their clubs. Yeah. And so how would you know the difference between that and a group that comes in, which, in the case of Shincheonji, will not tell you the truth about who they are, because they believe that if they do, you will bring prejudice against them, and they've had bad experiences.
Probably deservedly. I mean, so that's the thing to look out for, is if they're not prepared to say who exactly they are or share some information.
Precisely.
Or some branding or whatever.
Well, it's a sensible warning that you should carefully research anything that you're going to attend. Most of these groups will have little groups, a meeting, and invite you along to certain occasions. And the logic, as with drinking parties, is be mighty careful, and students, how are they going to get that message? I mean, I've taught students for many years, and I tell you, they're gullible.
So what do you do if you can see that happening to someone that you know? I mean, because it's tricky, right? You might be up against some resistance.
This is very, very tricky, because the first thing that this kind of group does is warns you of the evil outsiders who will try to stop you discovering the truth. Many years ago, when I was a student, one of my friends met a group in Cathedral Square in Christchurch and vanished. And he ended up to be in what became Gloria Vale.
Wow.
And I never saw him again. And so these things do happen. And I think, health warnings is the critical thing. The chaplains do a great job in trying to police, and I mean, universities have every right to order groups off campus if they're causing trouble.
I guess, you make a fair point that, I guess mainstream churches, for want of a better word, they're out there trying to spread their word. Banks are trying to get you to sign up for an overdraft or a credit card or whatever.
Yes.
So marketing's not a new thing. But I guess, how do people start a conversation, if you like, about, hey, are you sure about this, or help put people on their guard if they see someone that's a bit susceptible?
I think that you're right, that we should firstly just try to ask them some basic questions. Have you identified who these people are? Have you checked up, is there a Wikipedia article about them? You know, something as simple as that, which would give you a sense of identity and knowing what you're up against. Because, say, Shincheon Chi and the World Mission Society, the other one that seems to be active at the moment, these are Korean groups that will obscure exactly who they are.
Right. Well, thanks for bringing them to light here this morning. That's Peter Lynham, religious history expert, joining us here at the desk. It is 8:24 and time for a break. Next up, we'll have the panel with Maria Slade and Rawdon Christie, who will join me at the desk to talk through the big stories of the day. And then after 8:30, after the news anyway, Brightly founder Hannah McQueen on her new health and wellbeing service for older Kiwis.
Term deposit rates are falling, but your returns shouldn't. Speak to a Forsyth Barr investment advisor about alternative strategies, their benefits and risks, and how they can help you meet your investment goals. Forsyth Barr, investment advice.
A lot of radio shows like to say they're with you in the morning. Here at The Hits, we like to go the extra mile.
Not all of us get to experience this.
Come on, you're running late.
It's going to be a great day today, babes. I can feel it. Spit. You see, when we say we're with you, we actually mean it.
Oh, don't forget Sarah, who's got social netball tonight. And Mark's working late again.
Jono and Ben with you in the morning and anytime on iHeartRadio. On The Hits.
Hey, Dad.
What's up? What's up?
You know that's from the 90s, right?
So's this fuel price. 6 cents off per litre on the Gallop, even on top of discount day.
That's what's up.
Download the Gallop. What's up?
Time is 8:26 and it's time to talk the big issues of the day. Joining me here at the desk, Maria Slade, Business Desk senior journalist, and Rawdon Christie, a well-known real estate and broadcaster in the time as well. Good morning. Hey, look,
How are you?
Great, thank you. Good to see you guys here bright and early. Look, I want to start with you, Maria, because we had Paul Goldsmith on earlier talking about this bigger crackdown, for want of a better word, but effectively orders that give the police powers or law changes that give them the chance to move people on. You had a pretty personal experience with this, I hear, last year.
Just outside work here, yes. I was
you moved on.
Should have been, probably. 8:20 in the morning, just coming around the corner here into Graham Street, and this guy karate kicked me into the street.
Oh, were you all right?
I was fine. But he was clearly not in his right mind, you know. I did call the police, and they sort of said, well, you know, what can we do? But I filled out a report because they're quite interested in the statistics because of everything that's been going on. Now, I wouldn't say that person was homeless or a beggar. He obviously had issues. But it seems to me that, it's no panacea, but it may give police a little bit of extra oomph at the right times, perhaps. Moving people on is not a solution to a lot of those socio-economic problems, but it is an issue in the city with people creating a bit of disturbance.
So it's a real solution, you think?
I think it's exactly what you say, Maria, is that let's focus on what we're trying to achieve here, and that's to make the central city more desirable, more livable, to allow businesses to operate more freely and more profitably, to allow tourism to enjoy it and grow. And the reality is, while we're looking for solutions to the problem, the bigger problem, you're not going to be able to afford them unless you can actually build a really robust city centre. And you can see how often the police will have just shaken their heads with the business owner who's implored them to please help, saying, we're just powerless to do anything. So at least they've been given that. I mean, we can, it could be the sexy story, $2,000 fine or whatever, and, being dragged through the courts. That's not really the point. That's never going to really
That's
happen.
a lot of gold coins you'll have to have collected over the day. And I guess you also saw, I think, the police talking yesterday about how it's not just about people being safer, but feeling safer. Yep. So is this a bit of window dressing in some sense to say, hey, we've got this ability, you might as well come into the city, don't worry.
It is a wee bit. To me, it feels a little bit like the gang patch ban. It might give them some useful powers in certain circumstances, but it's certainly not going to solve the gang problem.
No. Yeah, and there's no surprise that, of course, opposition's leaping all over this, saying you're just shifting the problem. But
into those leafy suburbs where you're trying to sell houses?
Yeah, but the reality is that in those leafy suburbs, unless you work in the city, we're not really coming into the city very much. Maybe once in a blue moon for an event, but it's not a go-to destination. We have to create an environment, particularly with the tourism in mind, in my opinion, where this becomes one of the most desirable cities in the world, and I don't think we've got that at the moment. In some ways we do, but...
This is just one of the impediments then, because I was in town on Saturday night for the Pulp concert, which was amazing, everybody, but that felt to me like it was a pretty sort of safe environment. Is that sort of move to stay in the suburbs partly about economics, partly about people just working from home and all that kind of thing as well?
Yeah, it's going to be all of that. But I also do think where you're talking about in the city centre, down the waterfront area, that is pretty great. You walk along the viaduct into Wynyard and the sailing's going on there, the concerts are going on here. It's only a very small part of our city centre.
So it's certainly the sort of mid to upper town that seems to be the problem. Down the waterfront's fine.
Right, the right to sleep. How much did you guys get last night, can I ask?
Never enough. That is such an interesting case, but it's not about this M&A junior in the US who's suing her former employer for not giving her the right to a good 9-hour break.
Yeah.
It's not about the sleep, is it, though? It's about the work practices in those industries and sort of driving these young people like slaves, really. And it's gone on forever, and we've seen it here, and some of the law firms and whatnot here. It's hardly new, but that is a fascinating case that she's taking. I'd love to see how she gets on.
Well, I think
settled.
Little update to this. They have settled over the weekend because I gather that the company didn't want to actually open its books and expose whatever else it's been up to.
Right.
But effectively,
it's been up to. You're such a journalist. I want to focus on the job at hand.
Yeah, but I mean, the right to sort of 9 hours of uninterrupted once upon a time just would have been taken for granted, right? But effectively now you've got, certainly emails going off all hours of the day and night, weekends. Obviously that's that's just a business consideration when you've got to be up early in the morning to talk.
You sign up to it. It's if anyone really thinks if they go into mergers and acquisitions on Wall Street that they're going to have a nice, steady 40-hour-a-week job, you're dreaming. They know that. I'm sorry, a 21-year-old, they've signed up to this. You're right, there have to be some sort of parameters put in place. But out of all the jobs you're signing up for, that's the one which is going to absolutely ring you out. And I guess what, at the end of the day, you're going to be getting $1 million a year because of it 5 years later. It's just,
It's true, but I still don't think you should drive people drive people into the ground. And I think that there is a culture of, that older sort of cohort. Well, we had to do it, so you guys can all just take a concrete pill kind of thing. I would hope those.
In my real estate days.
Well, I was just going to ask, how late? If I'm you're marketing my home, how late are you going to take an email or a text message from me when you try and check something?
Depends how close we are to getting a deal. I was answering texts at 7 o'clock this morning, and I've worked 6 open homes Saturday, Sunday, and I was meeting vendors Saturday night because it's that time of year for us as well. And the reality for us is, though, the more we put in, the more we're not being paid a salary by someone to work. So if we're not turning up, if we're not answering the phone, then we're not making any money.
I guess you've got some control over that.
So
too,
we
right?
completely control that, yes.
Right,
That's right.
okay.
That's a big difference.
Yeah, okay. Hey, look, we were talking about cults before. I mean, it's slightly worrying. Have you seen these people sort of floating around the place at all? There's some reports, so I guess that they're lingering around the shopping centres of the North Shore, maybe not places that you normally hang out. Have you ever been approached in the street and asked to join a religious association?
I personally never have, but maybe I've got cynical journalists written across my forehead or something. But you can see how they target the students at university at this time of year, as has been said, that you're just in a vulnerable place there, aren't you? Even if you come from a good, stable family home sort of thing, you're in a new environment, you're trying to find your way, and you are a bit of a target, I think, for these type of people.
Yeah.
And there must be so many students, a minority, but who are feeling slightly lost and slightly isolated. And it's, you're right, it's an obvious hunting ground. But I mean, my youngest started at uni last week or the week before, and I think the clubs she's gone for so far have been sort of, skiing, wine, and
sensible girl.
Toga wearing or something. But she's lucky; she's got a great social community around her. If you were feeling a wee bit isolated, it's a bit like the gang model, isn't it?
Especially if you've come from elsewhere,
Yeah.
But it's interesting when you look down the tick boxes of things, like they take up a lot of your time. They love bomb you at first. Then they start telling you that they've got it right and everyone else has got it wrong. There's almost like this formula, this checklist.
Yeah, well, I think I read somewhere that it's a case that if they're a Christian organisation which is denouncing other Christian organisations, then steer clear, because that's not the. I don't really know. I'm pleased with the UC though, for University of Canterbury raising it and just making their students aware of it.
Right, and we're helping spread that message as well. Yeah. Thank you very much there, Maria Slade, Business Desk Senior Journalist, and Rawdon Christie, Real Estate Agent, for your reckons this morning. It is 8:34 and it's time for the news with Neva.
Herald Now News, powered by Newstalk ZB.
Concern from community housing providers that newly proposed move-on orders could drive people away from help. The government's moving to allow police to take action on people who are begging and sleeping rough. They'll have the power to order people to leave a public space for up to 24 hours, with fines of up to $2,000 or 3 months in jail. Community Housing Aotearoa Chief Executive Paul Gilbert says that the rough sleepers they're seeing on the streets are just the tip of the iceberg. He says there's people couch surfing, sleeping in cars, or hidden away elsewhere. The world is waiting for Donald Trump's next move as he appears to ignore the Supreme Court's latest ruling. The US president announced a new 10% global tariff on Saturday, then yesterday increased it to 15%. It followed his outrage the Supreme Court ruled that his tariff hikes last year were illegal. Otago University International Relations Professor Robert Patman says Trump's arbitrary use of tariffs is inconsistent with a rules-based world order. Meanwhile, a man has been shot and killed after entering the perimeter of President Donald Trump's resort in Palm Beach in Florida. The white male in his early 20s entered the secure perimeter at Mar-a-Lago around 1:30 a.m. before he was shot by agents and a Palm Beach deputy. The North Carolina man was reported missing a few days ago by his family. The President and First Lady were not on the premises. The woman at the centre of the Jevon McKimming scandal appears to have demanded money from the former Deputy Police Commissioner. In December, McKimming received 9 months home detention for possessing questionable material. A tranche of emails obtained by the Herald suggests the woman, known as Miss Z, asked for money between February 9th and 18th, 2024. Herald reporter Michael Morris says that the emails did not feature in the scathing IPCA report released in December. He says one states the sender wanted $600 for every time they were deceived into performing any sexual act. Ms. Z has not confirmed or denied whether she wrote the emails. Taxpayers have spent $58 million on redundancy payouts after Health NZ cut thousands of jobs in cost-saving drive. Official Information Act figures show that the money went to voluntary redundancies and early exits for non-clinical staff between November 2023 and December last year. The Public Service Association estimates nearly 2,800 workers left during that time. National Secretary Fleur Fitzsimon says it's a shameful outcome of reckless government cost-cutting during a health funding crisis and warns patients will ultimately pay the price.
Herald Now Sport, brought to you by Gold Sport.
Competition at the Milan Cortina Olympics is complete, with New Zealand 22nd on the medal table. 17-year-old Misha Thomas wrapped the campaign with 8th in the women's free ski half-pipe. The Breakers have defeated the 36ers 111-107 to claim ANBL Basketball's inaugural Ignite Cup final on the Gold Coast, despite missing the overall season playoffs. Central Districts have claimed the Ford Trophy cricket title, courtesy of a 6-wicket win over Canterbury in the final at Wellington.
Herald Now Weather.
Morena, for most of us, it's a sunny looking start to the week thanks to high pressure built right across the country. There is this next front, this band of wet weather arriving in the far southwest later on, but for most of us it's a dry and sunny Monday. And even here in the south it starts off pretty decent, plenty of clear sky and sunshine. The clouds starting to thicken up as we head through the afternoon, that wet weather arriving in as we head towards the end of the day. Up this western coast towards Tasman, Marlborough and down through Canterbury. Again, plenty of dry weather, just the cloud thickening up as we head in towards the afternoon. And that dry weather extends on towards the North Island as well. Plenty of sunny weather right the way from Wellington around towards Taranaki. Just a touch more cloud as we head through the afternoon. And that cloud will also begin to build and bubble away across the tops of, say, the Raukumara range up here in the Tairafti region, bringing an odd shower, but very much most of us will keep hold of that dry weather. Just a little bit more cloud through the afternoon. And it extends right the way towards Northland and Auckland, with highs in Auckland of 23 degrees Celsius.
Right, you're watching Ryan Bridge Today with me, Garth Bray, today. When Hannah McQueen sold financial coaching business Enable Me, well, she could have retired for good, apparently. Instead, she spotted a health system that's buckling under an ageing population and other pressures, and she's decided to tackle that head on, and so now she's launched Brightly to help fix it. And joining me in the studio is Hannah McQueen, the CEO of Brightly, to explain exactly what that is. Good morning.
Good morning.
Okay, so this is effectively what, a way to help people through the health system?
Well, it's preventative, proactive healthcare for older people. If you look at our hospitals, they are clogged with older people. We've got a bed block, but 90% of the people in those beds are older people. 50% of those people, roughly, didn't need to be in hospital, but that was the only course that they could go down. So if you go back the other way, it's like, well, if we could prevent them going to hospital, then they wouldn't be filling up the hospital beds. The reason why an older person doesn't want to be in hospital is that is the start of an accelerated frailty process. Maybe one more stop at hospital and then you're in a rest home, and then that's not particularly nice, right?
Don't go to hospital, they're full of sick people. This is the phrase that my granddad, I think, used to use. But anyway.
Well, you go further back and go, well, if we're going to try and prevent them getting into hospital, then we need to be able to give them access to services before they need to be in hospital. You then look at our primary care, which is also under load, filled with amazing people working really, really hard. We've got to, I guess, create a service, which Brightly is, which is going to focus on prevention, because you can't really do prevention in a 10-minute consult with your GP, right?
So this is effectively what, giving people advice, health advice? You're an accountant.
Exactly. I've only watched Grey's Anatomy, so I'm not the medical expert here. So what it is, preventative healthcare, it's about doing an assessment to start with. I've got a multidisciplinary team, so that's made up of 10 clinicians, and their job, working with the patient, is to understand, well, what is your baseline health position, and then start to measure that every 6 months to determine, are we getting any decline on some of these markers. So with their assessment, they've created this, so it's geriatrician-led. Geriatrician, I didn't even know this a year ago, as someone who specialises in older person healthcare. Who knew that that was a specialty? Yeah. Well, we've only got 2 private geriatricians, I think, in Auckland, right? So this is an amazing specialty. We don't have enough of it for this ageing population. So what we've done is we've created a baseline program where we work with you, 100 different biomarkers, 260 data points, and we're going to track your progress. Because if we can detect decline early, we can intervene with the right solution. And the multidisciplinary team, 10 different specialists specialising in older person care that are looking at those biomarkers to determine, is there a red flag, what is the intervention, and what are our prevention priorities. And then we create a health plan for that person.
Having a plan, having an early warning only counts if there's actually some sort of remedy for it and the capacity to do that, right? So, I mean, what's the point of knowing that you might be getting sicker if you're still going to have to go into the public healthcare system and fight your way through it, right?
Exactly. So 2 parts. No point being able to detect decline if you can't then create the targeted intervention or the fast access to the solution. That's the next part of what Brightly provides, is that we...
How do you do that? I mean, so what, you put the calls under specialists and say you need to see Garth's granddad or Garth's mum or whatever because they've paid for the service and we've identified a problem.
Yes, well, it's not just me that's identified the problem, reassuringly. We've got geriatricians, right? The most qualified people determining this is a high-risk proposition that we're dealing with, and they're connecting them with the right specialists. So we're aiming to get our members access to the right care within a week of them detecting the problem. But our multidisciplinary team can provide that solution for 80% of the instances. So we're able to, I guess, have some off-ramps because they get that targeted intervention quickly.
I mean, obviously it's a great business proposition. Is there a risk that we're sort of helping people jump the queue, though, that there might be people in greater need who don't have access to the service?
Well, I think in this situation they're going down the private route, so they're not accessing the public resources, they're accessing private resources. But I guess if you look at the problem, the emerging problem, you've got people who are pre-frail, who have early stages of frailty. So my parents would be pre-frail, well, they'd like to think probably.
Great phrase, isn't it? Pre-frail.
Well, there's no symptom, right? Once you've got a symptom, you're like, well, I know something's changing. And I think one of the things that has, I guess, been revealed to me is just how complex the health is as you get older, because you have these 15 domains of health that all interplay with each other. So you can't just talk to a pharmacologist or a clinical pharmacist on one issue. You need to combine that with talking to the geriatrician, to talking with the physio, to the psychologist. All these things start to play together.
You're joining the dots, if you like.
Yeah, we're helping navigate what is a very fragmented system, detecting decline early, preventing it where we can, and giving fast access to the right targeted treatment when you need it.
We all want to live longer. Hannah McQueen, CEO of Brightly, thank you very much for coming in to explain your proposition this morning. Right, New Zealanders have picked up 2 awards at the 79th British Academy Film Awards, the BAFTAs. Weta Effects has won the BAFTA for special visual effects thanks to their work on the latest Avatar movie, while Kiwi Kate Hawley has won a BAFTA for best costume design for the Frankenstein film. Elsewhere at the BAFTAs, Paul Mescal, nominated for Best Supporting Actor in Hamlet, arrived with singer Gracie Abrams, making their relationship red carpet official. Among the stars on the red carpet, actor Kate Hudson, who's nominated for Best Actress in her performance in Music from Midsummer Night, and Ethan Hawke, nominated for Best Actor in Blue Moon. One battle after another, Sinners and Hamlet are among the front runners for this year's big movie awards at the BAFTAs. Right, to motoring right now, and we are joined at the desk by the editor of the Driven Car Guide, David Linklater. Hello, David, and good morning. Now, I think we're here to talk about charging up your car. What's the news?
Flash charging. So the dream is charging an EV as fast as you can fill up a petrol car, I guess, for a lot of people, and that's actually happening in China at the moment with BYD, which is a very well-known brand in New Zealand, of course.
We're seeing more and more of them around.
BYD is hugely popular here, so BYD New Zealand are actually going to have a couple of cars, and they're going to start establishing a little bit of infrastructure that's going to allow a typical EV to charge in 4 minutes from flat to full. So that's not even time for a coffee.
So this is the technology that's inside the vehicle rather than the technology that's inside the charger?
It's both.
Right.
So the bad news is you need a special charging station and you need a special car. But obviously,
we sell you a solution and a problem at the same time.
Yeah, that's right. So you need a special, it's called megawatt charging. So it's 1,000 kilowatts charging.
Is this the kind of thing that's going to mean you have to rewire your home or something to provide it, or will just
No, because it's being provided by these public stations. So, you know, we've seen, like, for example, ChargeNet's the biggest provider of public DC charge stations. So it's that type of charging station, but it's called a megawatt station. So the very fastest charger that ChargeNet offers in New Zealand at the moment is 300 kilowatts, which is still extremely fast. There's actually not that many cars that can charge at 300. So these stations can deliver up to 1,500 kilowatts. And BYD has developed a car and a battery architecture that can charge it up to 1,000. So that genuinely means flat to full in 4 minutes. And
this is still just using that lithium-ion technology.
Yep.
We haven't even got onto the sodium-ion stuff.
No.
We're talking
But
about
a special
using.
type of lithium-ion.
Right.
Well, it's an LFP battery actually, but similar concept. But they've sort of lowered the internal resistance of the battery, so that helps. And you need the big charging station. But what BYD's done, which is actually quite clever, is in China they're building special charging stations, 4,000 of them they're going to install, but for export markets, and they're really keen to roll this out to a lot of export markets. And New Zealand's always head of the queue because we're a good test market. We're small, so they can work stuff out before they go into the big markets. They've worked out a way to sort of adapt existing station infrastructure to still deliver the 1,000 kilowatts. So you're going to have these charge stations with 2 guns, and you'll plug 2 guns into your EV at once. And I'd say stand back. But
it's like double parking.
But they say this can deliver the full 1,000.
Right.
So I mean that's incredible. So
that's probably quite important because there was this sort of promise, I think, that there were going to be 10,000 charging stations up and down the country, and we're a long way off that, aren't we? And that's, would you say, one of the considerations people have when they're thinking about buying a vehicle these days? Many still going for the conventional kind of fuels because that network is maybe just a bit patchy in places, or people fear they're going to get caught out.
The 10,000 is a bold claim. I mean, if you work that out, that's like one less than every 10 kilometres. So I don't know about the 10,000, but
I'm sure that was a political claim.
It was, yeah,
the last
absolutely
election,
was. I don't know if they did their maths properly there. But yeah, the claim from BYD is, this is actually quite a convenient technology. You wouldn't even really need charging at home if you could just pop down the road and it's 4 minutes to charge your EV. So it's not going to happen overnight because these are expensive cars and expensive stations, but they're getting it started, and they've promised that they'll have these stations active in New Zealand.
I guess, where does that leave the existing fleet? They can't make use of this technology at all. It's not backward step. They can't send a bit of a firmware update to try and upgrade the car. It's baked in, is it?
It's baked in. It's called the Super E platform. So BYD, there's only 2 models in China that can that have this capability at the moment. One of them is called the Tang L, but it's essentially a version of the Sea Lion 8, which is an SUV that Kiwis will be familiar with. It's just been launched here, so it's that shape car. And obviously, future BYD models and Denza, which is the luxury brand from BYD, they'll have this technology. So it is happening, and it's happening quite fast in China. Chinese brands work very, very fast.
And you imagine that the others are probably running fast to try and catch up, so others will probably bring something similar on board?
Yeah, I mean, that's the race. Everyone's, and that's one of the main pain points, I think, with EVs. It's the waiting for the charge and the queuing. So if you're only taking 4 minutes to fill, that's less queuing. It's like queuing for a petrol pump. The person in front of you is going to be gone in 4 minutes.
David Linklater, in the time it has taken to charge a new BYD, that's the Driven Car Guide editor David Linklater with us on the latest in motoring this morning. Now, time now for business, thanks to our partners Forsyth Bar. And back in for more from Wellington is Business Desk senior reporter Thomas Manch. We've got some results in earnings season. I'm just going to throw to you at this point, Thomas. Tell me what we've got.
Yeah, look, bit of breaking news actually coming out of these early results in the last 20, 15 minutes or so. So Genesis Energy has come back with a record half-year earnings. They're up to $307 million in earnings. The big news really is this equity raise. So much like Contact Energy last week, they say they are going to do an equity raise of $400 million. And as I was sitting here waiting to come on, the government's actually just put an announcement in the inbox, and they're going to buy up to $200 million of these new Genesis Energy shares that are coming through on the equity raise. Finance Minister Nicola Willis saying, and I'll just quote, "We confirmed last year that we would consider requests from all 3 majority government-owned gentailers, and they think that what Genesis is intending to do will be good for the country's energy security." So, if you were looking to buy $400 million of Genesis shares, too bad. Half of those have already sold. A couple of other quick earnings results through. Chorus at the half year say they're up 3% to $357 million with a net profit of $15 million. They are doing an interim dividend of 24 cents per share, which is up 4% on the year before. And Tourism Holdings, which is a big campervan rental and tourism operator business, they're up 4% to $477 million in earnings, and their net profit is up 11% to 29.5 million, and obviously for them it's really a tourism market recovery story.
And obviously a wee bit of exposure possibly to the US market, I think, and Canada, because they've got some business interests over there. So interesting to see how they respond to the tariff chat, maybe when they get a chance to speak to that later today.
Yeah, certainly. I mean, I think they've commented in their release this morning that their RV sales and tools, I think, have been impacted by that softness.
Right, thanks very much, Thomas Manch, with the latest there from Business Desk, and we talk business every day, thanks to our partners, Forsyth Bar. Time for a break, and we'll be back shortly.
Maximising productivity, what have you got?
Well, if we switch to 2 degrees, with Flex for Business, we can instantly manage data usage, employee mobile plans, and cost centre reporting, saving us time and money. Cool. I'll get onto that then. Mm-hmm.
We done few subdivision with GJ Gardner, and from the resource consent to the building consent, getting the council permits and stuff, always GJ Gardners are ahead and helping us out through the whole process, and it was so easy working with GJ.
Speaking to the acting Prime Minister, does he stand by all of
You don't shout out like some bunch of clowns at university.
My message to the union is very clear. Don't use...
The New Zealand Herald, news worth knowing.
Thanks for watching Herald Now. The government is giving police the power to issue move-on orders to the homeless anywhere in the country. Earlier, I was joined by Justice Minister Paul Goldsmith, and I started off by asking whether this was targeting the vulnerable.
I mean, we've spent the last 2 years working to fix the basics by restoring law and order in this country, and we're making good progress. We've toughened up sentencing laws, we've given the police extra power to deal with gangs, and a host of other things, dealt with stalking behaviours. But one of the areas that consistently comes up is particularly people who work and live in the CBDs and our main streets. The antisocial behaviour really sort of picked up during the COVID period and hasn't yet been resolved. And so this is about giving the police an extra tool to deal with that group. And look, if the criticism is this is our only response to people in need, well, yeah, that would be a fair criticism, but of course it's not. I mean, the government has a massive investment in helping with housing situations and with all the addictions and issues that this group deals with as well, but this is about a tool dealing with those who don't comply.
Yeah, I think I picked up that your Minister, Simeon Brown, was saying 146 people have been placed into housing since the end of January, up from 33 when you announced it last. That's nowhere near the sort of level of need that's there, though, is it? You're not. You still don't have places for the people that need to find homes.
Well, there are extra places that can still yet be filled. There's a relatively small group of genuinely homeless people in Auckland and in our cities, and we're working to deal with those issues. But there's also a much wider group of antisocial behaviour that everybody sees. I I defy anybody who have been into central Auckland and central Wellington, our downtown areas recently, to see that there is this kind of antisocial behaviour. And what we're trying to do simply is to reclaim those streets for the enjoyment of people who live and work there. I'm constantly hearing businesses saying, well, we're actually thinking of moving out of the city because our workers don't feel safe leaving at 5 o'clock and sort of working their way through the crowd. And that has to change.
Tell me how it would work, because the police seem to struggle a little bit to say. They were saying we need to write some operational orders for this. So how does it work? Does someone get moved 100 metres up the road and just cause a problem at McDonald's instead of at KFC, or what?
No. I mean, obviously, we're going to be introducing legislation in the next couple of months. It'll go off to select committee. So the police have a considerable period of time to operationalise this and work out how they do it. Just like they did with the gang pash ban, which everybody said wouldn't work, and it has worked very well. So we're very confident that the police will be able to make it work. In essence, if you're subject to this, you'll be told to move a reasonable distance. Now, that'll be different depending where you are. If you're in Whangarei, it might be different to Auckland. Maybe a kilometre up the road. It might be out of the CBD. But the point is, it applies everywhere in this country. So if you just set up your stall again further up the road, well, then you're subject to another move-on order. And ultimately, it's about sending a clear message that these behaviours are not what we want to see in our city.
At what point do they wind up just, I don't know, in one of those suburbs that you've just managed to defend against the prospect of high-rises? Is this going to push the problem into areas?
No, because it'll apply equally there. And what we're trying to assert is that our main streets, our public places, are places where people should feel welcome, and there are behaviours that we don't tolerate and we won't tolerate.
So previously, Mark Mitchell was saying, I don't want the police involved in this kind of thing. It's a social services matter. How did you change his mind?
The police aren't dealing. Police always have to deal with a wide range of activities, and this is just one tool that we've got. We've got lots of tools to help people in need, because we are a caring society. We have a very strong welfare state, and we do want to help those who are in need. We've got lots of tools to help them, but we also need some tools to send a clearer message to that small group who don't want that help and don't cooperate and seem to think that it's their right to live on Queen Street and to make life difficult for everybody else who's going about their lawful business.
So I guess this makes sense if you're saying, hey, there's somebody that looks like they're setting up for the night in someone's shop front window and they're going to need to hose it down the next morning. Yep. Presumably that's an easy one. What about, I don't know, a group that sets up in front of a business that wants to stage a protest of some kind against whatever they're doing?
Oh, well, that's absolutely excluded. This is not interfering with free speech and protesting. It's not interfering with busking. It's not interfering with people wanting to raise money for a charity. That's all excluded by this legislation.
So if Brian Tamaki wants to hold a Destiny Church rally at the bottom of town, he's going to be fine under this?
No. It's nothing to do with protests. We're a free and open society. If you want to protest, that's good for you.
Right, I'm getting a move-on order from the team in the control room. That's us for today. We'll be back from 7 a.m. tomorrow morning. For more news, though, you can head to nzherald.co.nz or check it on the phone app. A quick thank you to our partners, Forsyth Bar, Barkers, Max and GJ Gardner, and from the team at Ryan Bridge today. Thanks for joining us. Hope to see you tomorrow.